Pray that you all having a great day. Welcome to today's truth session. As you know, we will be talking about overcoming our own insecurities while dealing with the insecurities of others. And man, I had so much to say just on this topic, but as promised, I'll try to keep it in 30 minutes. We do have a group. I'll get into our group. I told them today and chat with them for a little bit. So my daughter's cooking and I set myself that time limit. So I'm gonna hop right in, but I'm so excited about this. And I want to just talk about like why I feel like it's important for us to talk about. As you know, I like to talk about real topics that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. I don't sugarcoat it. I just give it to you straight, just like how I experienced it. I like to share my testimonies. And so if that vibes with you, continue to come every Tuesday at 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. I'll be live sharing these things with you all. And if you don't know me, my name is Katana Castile, and that's just who I am. You'll get to know me by and by. So again, I wanted to talk about first why I even wanted to talk about this. Well, I have a group that's we call it the Truth Room. And inside the Truth Room, it is what it sounds like. It's just real, it's raw, it's the truth. And these kind of topics were coming up a lot with some of the women, because as we begin to work on our goals and things that we want to achieve in our life, as you know, you're going to experience some insecurities and you're going to experience some fears. And I push them to like do things that they hadn't done before. And sometimes that could be uncomfortable. So I figured that if they were dealing with that, then maybe you are too. And I wanted to share that. But why are we talking about this topic? It's because insecurity is something that robs us of our peace, and it prevents us from being able to engage with other people in a relaxed and authentic way. And that's important, because if you want great relationships in your life and if you want good friendships, then it's important for you to show up and be authentic and genuine and real, you know. And so you can't do that though if you feel insecure about yourself. So whether it's a relationship or whether it's a friendship, insecurity plays a big role in that. And I also talk about like what it really is and boil down to some of the reasons. I have 3 main reasons that I want to talk about tonight on how insecurity really affects you and how you can overcome those things. So the second reason why is because the actions that come from insecurity, whether it's all or being jealous or using or snooping or just things like that in your life, it erodes us and it's not attractive to people. It could push people that you really want to be close to and connect with. Like I said, I'm not talking about just relationships, because you could have a husband and wife relationship, right? Like you can have a marriage and still have a lot of insecurity. And so whether it's friendships or marriages, you know, that's important to recognize and identify that in yourself so that you can have better relationships and better friendships, like I said. And you also get to know a lot about yourself too in the process. And so while many people, and I do have my notes because I'm a talker and it helps me to stay on task. So if you see me look down, that's why. So while many people tend to think that insecurity comes from something somebody else did or said, it really, in reality, the most insecurity that we have comes from within ourselves. So like I said, this will help you kind of just like see where you are and like if any of these things are in your life as well. The feeling can start early in life with an insecure attachment to our parents, or we can develop that after being hurt or rejected by somebody else that we cared about. Insecurities are maintained and built upon when we negatively compare ourselves. That's another thing we're going to talk about, comparing ourselves to other people and harshly judging ourselves with critical inner dialogue. So when we go through things or, you know, we may feel like we experienced a failure in our life, then a lot of times that experience stays with us and we begin to be like really critical of ourselves. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. It even affects, like I said, our relationship with other people. So the majority of our relationship insecurity is based on irrational thoughts and fears. These are not even a lot of times things that have merit. Like a lot of times we don't even have cause to have these thoughts and fears, but they're there. So that you're not good enough, right? Those are some of the thoughts we may have, that you will not be okay without somebody validating us. So, right, we're always looking for that validation and always looking for somebody else to tell us we did a good job, or that we're good enough. You know, we all have this innate sense to want to know, like, am I good enough? Do I matter? Am I important to somebody else? Right. So, or that we even are lovable. Some people don't even feel like they've had so much insecurity in their life, you know, so many just negative experiences in their life. They don't even feel like they're even good enough anymore, you know? So dealing with insecurity is never easy. But like I said, hopefully by understanding these things, you'll be able to overcome it and deal with it, the feelings and emotions in a more understanding manner, and keep you from reacting to hurts in the same old ways that you've been doing. So now that I've kind of explained a little bit what it is, hey, Ashley, hey, Kirsten, hey, Katrina, hey, Ava, hey, Sister Gina, I'm so excited that y'all joined. Like I said last week, guys, I do have session notes. So I started doing this because a lot of times I talk fast and I talk a lot. So I wanted to break it down in a way that's kind of like bite-sized. See if it shows. But yeah, so this was from last week's session, but this week's notes are kind of the same. So all you have to do is share it out. Hey, Kirsten, all you have to do is share it out, and everybody that shares it out, I'll send you this, because I'll go back and look in Facebook and I'll send you a copy. Hey, Sister Gina. So yeah, see, I get sidetracked, y'all. I get so squirrel. So so that's what we'd be talking about. That's pretty much the gist of it, you know, about insecurity. And so in order for me, when I'm studying something, or like when I'm learning about something, and I can't see your comments all the time when I'm looking at the notes, but I will get back in. But a lot of times, like when I'm studying something, for me, you have to understand what it is in order for you to kind of like overcome it. Does that make sense? So like for me, I first had to define what insecurity was. So I'll read y'all what the definition of insecurity really is. So insecurity is the feeling of uncertainty, self-doubt, or anxiety about yourself. It's a lack of confidence, feeling doubt about, or not secure. So insecurity is really like an inner feeling that we have from being, if we feel inadequate in some way. So let's say, especially when you're starting a new job, or like you're doing like a new thing that you've never had to do before. Like maybe in ministry, you can be called on to teach or something like that, and you may not feel comfortable with that because you have never done it before. A lot of times we have insecurity around things that are new for us. Like we have never done it, we've never experienced it. So we're very shaky on it. So that's why insecurity is like not secure. You know, when you're feeling like uneasy, you don't feel like confident in it, you know. So anytime that we feel inadequate, and we've all experienced this, we've all felt some type of insecurity before. And I may, as we're going through, share a testimony. Y'all know I always have a testimony about something, and I don't mind sharing it. My life is an open book. So anytime you feel uncertain, though, or not confident, or you're not sure about yourself, you'll begin to experience these feelings of insecurity. So I asked myself, like, where does this stuff come from? Because, you know, you're born a baby, you're a blank slate. Like, you know, you don't have insecurity as a baby. Like you're not like in a nursery worried about what somebody else think about you. You're not concerned about, you know, really anybody else. If you know anything about a baby, like they're very selfish creatures, right? Like they don't care about if you're sleeping. They don't care if you're tired. You know, if they're hungry, they'll cry. If they're wet, they'll cry. Like it's all about them, right? So we're born from a place of like not really caring about what other people think. And then as you get older, like you start having all these cares and concerns, right? So I begin to think like, where did this stuff start from? And again, I'm a researcher. I love psychology. So a lot of this stuff came from like just psychological research and like articles and things like that. And I just kind of like pieced it all together so I can make it kind of like concise. So a lot of it stems from our childhood, as you could imagine, you know, like I said, the kind of childhood that we had, past traumas that we had, right? Recent experiences with failure or rejection. And we talked about rejection last week and how a lot of rejection is like just our mindset, right? Like it's the way we perceived an event that happened. Rejection is not a person. It's not who you are. Or even failure is not who you are. It's an experience that you had. And a lot of times rejection, it's only rejection because you perceive it that way, right? Like because you, in your mind, you took it as if somebody like rejected you, but it doesn't always mean it's true. And we talked all about that last week. So it's still on my Facebook page, so you can go and look for that. And why I'm mentioning it here, because you'll see how it all ties together. Like I said, so a lot of times it's our experiences with failure and rejection that insecurity comes from. Perfectionism, a lot of us, we like things done perfectly, and if it's not done perfectly, or if we feel like, somebody didn't praise it, or we didn't get the response that we thought we would have gotten from it, like we become insecure, right? Or having a critical parent. So a lot of times if we had a critical parent or somebody who constantly like criticizes, or we felt, again, a lot of it is perception. We felt that we were criticized. It will really affect us in a really negative sense, and we'll become insecure about a lot of things. That all contributes to our insecurity. So there are 3 common forms, though, that, like I said, we're going to talk about tonight, and how to begin to cope with them. How does it come about? These are the 3 things. So we can experience insecurity in a lot of different ways based on a lot of different things. But the 3 we're going to talk about tonight is a recent failure or rejection, a lack of confidence because of social situations. A lot of people get like anxiety around being around other people, like feeling rejected, or in a big group. They might be good like one-to-one or talking to like a small group of people, but like if you put them in a bigger environment, like at a meeting or something, they won't know what to do. So it's really that confidence that in being like in a social environment. And also insecurity driven by self-comparison, which is huge for women, especially for women. Like we're so, we allow what the perception is of somebody else, and we measure ourselves by their, like whatever we perceive they are. And I use that carefully, because I can't say what they are, because a lot of times that's what we perceived in our mind. It may not even be true. Like there's people's Facebook profiles, and they're traveling and they're doing these things. Whatever it is that you feel like you would want to do with your life, or that you feel like you would like to experience, if you see somebody else doing it, then it makes you feel insecure, because it's like, man, they're living this life, and here I am with my little life, which really and truly somebody else is looking at your life like, man, they living it up. Like they have a great life. Like I wish my life could be like their life. So a lot of it is just like that self-comparison, and it puts us in this bad place where we're like, man, we feel so insecure and bad, and really not grateful for the things we do have, because it's really a lot when you look at it in the lens of somebody else. Does that make sense? So let me just check on y'all's. Hey, Danielle. Hey, my husband is here. Hey, honey. So yeah, move on, because like I say, y'all, I will get so distracted. So yeah, we're going to talk about each of those in a little more detail. So like I said, insecurity could come from many different places, many different things. But the first one I want to talk about is a recent failure or rejection. So like it's known, like there are studies that have been done, and recent events that happen in our lives can greatly affect both our mood and the way we feel about ourselves. So since unhappiness is influenced by our self-esteem, failure and rejection can deliver like twice as much of a blow when it happens. So a negative experience like failure or rejection what it does is it takes our old negative beliefs that we have about, let's say you experience something, whatever belief that you attach to that, like it'll take that and it'll color how you see your self-worth. Does that make sense? So like if you experience like, I don't know, a bad breakup ever in your life, like every relationship going forward, you're going to like measure by what you've already experienced. So that's why it's so important to understand this, because I know for me, and I'll share, I shared a little bit last week, but like with my husband, when it came time for like, I guess getting engaged, because in church it's like a whole different process. But so when it came to that, I come from a whole different kind of relationship. Prior to me being in salvation, like prior to me coming to church and coming to God, I was in a whole different kind of relationship. And so what I knew and thought to be love was not really the love that God described in the Bible. Like it's not really the love that God wanted for me, right? And so here I had this man, which is not my husband, but at the time I just was like, no, he's just not my type. Like he's just, and God began to deal with me. And he was like, that's the problem, because the type you were attracting before was based on the old experiences of what you thought love was, right? Or that you thought he was this man, he was very patient, kind, like all the attributes that God, like that any sane person, right, would want. But for me, I just was like, you know, oh, he's not this enough. Like I was used to, like, if I argue with you, if we going back and forth, like you gonna argue back. This man was not gonna sit there and argue back with me. You know what I mean? And I was like, no, I need somebody who's gonna, like, I thought that was like manly, like that's like tough. You know what I mean? Like, and so it just really, and really God began to educate me on what love really was. And by me learning about the love of God and how he loves us and how we deserve to be loved, it changed a lot of that self-worthness in me. And it caused me to see that this man is not weak because he's loving, because he's kind, because he's patient. This is what a man of God is versus what you are used to dealing with in the world. And so God really had to re-educate me on what that was. But I could not have progressed. We've been married now almost 13 years. Hey, you know, but I would have never had that experience, that new experience, had I held on to the old one. And so that's why it's important for us to like understand these things, because a lot of times, like, we'll see cycles keep happening in our lives because we're not willing to let go of the old experience in order to experience something new. So I hope that makes sense. Check on y'all. Yeah. Amen. So the second thing, because y'all, I'm trying to stay on time this time. The second thing, y'all, is lack of confidence in like a social situation, right? So we've all been through these experiences where we've been around other people that we don't know, and it's not the most comfortable thing, right? You don't know them, they don't know you, it's awkward. You don't really know what to say, you know, you don't know what's okay to talk about, what's not okay to talk about. That could be a great form of insecurity. Like we don't know, like we just don't know. So many of us experience a lack of confidence in these social situations, whether it's even interviews, right? Because you want to say the right thing. You don't want to like say the wrong thing and offend somebody. You know, it's always these things in our mind, right? Like I said, social family gatherings, family is another thing. You know, you may have people that, like me, I met my cousin a couple of months ago, and I hadn't seen her since I was probably like 12, 13. You know what I mean? So I'm getting to know this person as a grown adult versus like from where I remember her from. And we talked a lot about the past and things that we remembered and stuff, but I had to get to know her all over again, you know, so I had to just learn things about her. And sometimes that could not be comfortable. But me, honestly, I just go with the truth. I mean, I try to be as authentic and honest and just me and real as possible. And people always know that anything that I say or do is coming from a place of love, even if it's sometimes not always easy to hear, you know? So it's important to be yourself, but you can't really be yourself and be authentic if you feel insecure. So a lot of that work I had to do even in God, because I wouldn't have been able to communicate with people and like really let people into my life if I still was in a place of those old experiences and insecurity. So also the fear of being evaluated by others. Oh my God, that's like the base of it, right? We always feel like it's a constant dance when we meet somebody or we're talking to somebody. It's like a constant dance of how they looking at you, how they viewing you, like are they judging you, are they thinking a certain way about you, right? Like it's this constant like evaluation of other people that we feel, right? And so it's found to be, so we don't want to be found lacking, you know, in our, it's called, Russell Brunson talks about, he's like a marketer, and he talks about a decrease in status. We don't want things, we won't even share things. Like people, you won't even share this video if you don't feel like it'll increase your status in some kind of way, right? We don't want people thinking negative about us. We don't want people judging us, you know, like that's one of the fears a lot of times of people. And so we rather not even do things if we feel like we'll be judged by them, versus like we step out on faith or on a limb or whatever and just do it, right? So that's a big one. Like the fear of being evaluated by other people, to be found lacking, can lead to us feeling anxious and self-conscious. So as a result, we may avoid social situations altogether. We experience anxiety when we anticipate social events, or we feel self-conscious and uncomfortable doing them. So a lot of times we won't even want to do it. We won't even want to go. Like the first thing we ask a lot of times, like, who's going to be there, right? So if you find yourself asking like, who's going to be there, then it's some type of like social insecurity that you're going through. Like I said, past experience can feed our sense of not belonging. So not feeling important, or not feeling like people will be interested in what we have to say, or just not being good enough. Right? Like that's a big thing. So like especially if you've been to an event and you felt like you didn't belong, or you feel like, you weren't welcome, a lot of times, like that's what'll come to mind when you think about another event. So because of something that happened in the past, you'll like not want to do those things because you remember how bad that felt. Right? And we as human beings, we don't want to do anything that doesn't feel good. Also being bullied or excluded from a group. So if you experience that and you may have been bullied or just excluded, whether it's in middle school or high school, it'll continue to affect you even as adults if you're not conscious of it or if you're not aware of it, right? It affects our confidence even as adults. So if we grew up either with critical parents, like I said, or parents who pressured us to be popular or successful or whatever, you may also be oversensitized to how others perceive you. This type of insecurity is generally based on distorted beliefs about our self-worth, and to the extent of other people evaluating us. For the sake of time, I'm going to kind of move on. But this is true. I want to mention this because this is true. So most of the time, people are actually more focused on how they are being perceived than how we are being perceived. So it's so funny because we're like worrying about, and I talked about in one of the sessions before about how this guy was at Walmart, and like I think we could all relate to this because we all seen somebody who like just think they the bomb.com, and they just like looking good or whatever, and we could care less about anything that they're trying to impress us with, right? Like, and so that's how this guy was. I mean, I didn't even notice him until like he almost like tripped and fell or something because he was so just fixated on how he was coming across, and nobody in the parking lot cared or even looked. I probably would never see him again in my life, and I mean I could care less. But it's so funny because he's like adjusting his chain, and I mean he's just like getting out his car, and he's like he just know he look good, right? And nobody could care. I mean, really. But it's so funny because we'll look at that person and say like, we don't care. Like you just really looking weird to us because you're like more fixated on you than we are. But we don't think that about ourselves, right? Like we think everybody care. Like, oh my God, any little thing, like if we almost fall or whatever the case is, like we really think that other people care. It's really not that crucial. So that's part of it too. So like, and the last one that I want to talk about is insecurity driven by perfectionism or self-comparison. Like I said, that's one of the ones, and we're doing good on time. So that's awesome. So some of us have very high standards, right? So like in school, I was National Honor Society, Junior Beta Club, all that stuff, right? So we have these very high standards for everything that we do. So, like I said, you might be the best job, the perfect figure, the most beautiful house, whatever the case is that you want. But unfortunately, life doesn't always turn out that way exactly how we want it, right? So even if we work extra hard. So, I mean, there's a piece of it like bosses may be critical. You can't control that, right? So some things you can't control. Jobs may be scarce, partners. I mean, you can't control a lot of these things. So if you constantly disappointed and blaming yourself for being anything less than what you have control of, you're going to start to feel insecure and you're going to start to feel unworthy. So beating up on yourself and constantly worrying about not being good enough can lead to depression, actually, and anxiety, even eating disorders or chronic fatigue. And this is what I wanted to mention about perfectionism. Perfectionism is often based on an all or nothing kind of mindset, right? So you thinking like, if you could have done like 98 things right, but if you missed two things or you did two things wrong, then you feel like everything else is like a wash. When really, it's really an opportunity for you to be more compassionate with yourself and understanding a way to better view the situation. So are you taking your circumstances into account when you evaluate yourself? Like, is it something that you learn? My whole thing is this. So if I've done something and it failed, because remember, failure is just an experience. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. So if I've done something and it failed, I always ask myself, like, what did I learn from it? Or what did I achieve even as the end result of it? So like when I first started doing these live streams, I mean, of course, like, oh my God, you have so much like anxiety around it. You don't know, you're just starting, right? So anytime you start anything, you're going to not be good at it. You might as well just like, I don't care who you are. I mean, you may do okay, you may get by, but you're not going to be at the level of if you've done it for several years, right? That's life. And the more you become acquainted with that, and the more you accept that, the better you'll be, right? Because if you don't, what'll happen is you're not going to want to even try, because you're evaluating yourself not at where you are. If you understand, like I was talking about in one of the other live streams, a baby, right? Nobody expects a baby to like go from crawling straight to like running. Like, no, it's a process. And so if you learn to appreciate the process, a lot of times, you'll actually progress a lot quicker because you understand it's part of the journey. So just like with this, it's a part of the journey. So like I said, those are the 3 things I wanted to talk about as far as being insecure, a recent failure, rejection, lack of self-confidence because of a social situation. I know I'm running out of time, so I wanted to hurry up. And also insecurity is driven by perfectionism and self-comparison. We know the Bible says that when we compare ourselves among ourselves, we're just not wise. So that's not something that we want to do. So this is a few things I want to leave y'all with, like tools, in order to combat some of that insecurity. Like I said, try to evaluate yourself based on how much effort you put in, which is controllable. You can control how much effort you put in rather than on the outcome, because you can't control that a lot of times. There's a lot of external factors that may come into place. So talk back to yourself. Like when you hear that negative voice inside saying this or that about something that you tried to do, talk back to it. Like find a way to appreciate the effort that you're doing instead of just like focusing on the end result. You know what I mean? Prepare in advance. So as much as possible, prepare in advance. So like if you're not good in social environments, begin to think about things that you could talk about at the event you're going to, or like at the meeting you're going to, right? Current movies that you may like or that you want to inquire about them. Make it as much about them. And in turn, a lot of times you'll feel a lot more comfortable as well because it's a conversation, right? You'll have more things to talk about with them. Practice. Like I said, you won't be good at it right off the bat. Like, it's new to you. So practice it. Don't avoid going to an engagement because, you feel like you won't be good at it. The more you do it, the more you put yourself out there, the better you'll be. And again, set realistic and limited goals. So let's say you used to going to events and you don't really talk to anybody. Well, say this time when I go there, I'm going to talk to at least 2 people. And by you doing that, you're getting out of that old experience and you're creating a new experience to where the next time somebody invites you, you remember those 2 people and how you did it that time. So it'll help you get out of your shell, right? And the last thing I want to leave with y'all, and I'm right on time. I'm so glad because the last session was an hour. It was so worth it though. That was like way better. Go check that out. We talked about rejection. It was awesome. And I really enjoyed that one. But this, like I said, deliberately focus on others to combat such an intense self-focus. So like I said, observe them, like get into their world, like so that you can get out of yours. Because if you stay kind of fixated on you and like what you're experiencing, like what you're going through, then it keeps you really isolated from other people because you're not as concerned with what they're experiencing and what they're going through. And we know that people care more about themselves than they care about us. That's just the truth. So the more you get into their world and you get them talking about like things that interest them and things that they are, that they're interested in, then it'll create more of like a conversation and a relationship. And it'll even more important than that, it'll create a new experience for you so that the next time you are dealing with insecurity of any kind, it's not going to be as bad. So with that being said, oh, thank you. Hey, Katrina, girl. I'm so glad you were able to watch. But with that being said, y'all, I will share this because I have like a minute left and I'm gonna make it quick. So what kind of jogged this for me? I went like workout. Y'all know I was like big, like I love working out now, right? So I went workout. Thank y'all for the hearts. I love the hearts. Y'all so sweet. And I missed my original time because, hey, Sister Patricia, I missed my original time. So it made me have to go to like the next class. Well, in the next class, like I'm like this all the time. I'm like, hey, we about to work out, like all this. And this girl, she just wasn't even having it. Like she was like, girl, like, I don't even know why you so excited. Like, she just like probably wanted me to go sit down in the corner somewhere until the workout started. But that's just who I am. So again, we're talking about like when you're authentic, like that's just who you are. You just have to be who you are, right? And because I'm so secure with myself, it didn't really, I noticed it, but it didn't really like take me off anything. So I'm like, okay, like you just, because I'm like this, it's not about me. I realize when somebody's like behaving in a certain way or they don't like me, when that feeling come like, oh, they don't like you. You don't know that. That is not true. Like, you don't know that, right? So like, how can I say they don't like me? They don't know me, you know? And so, and a lot of people, when it comes to me, they have this, they tell me later, like they had this preconceived like idea of who I was until they got to know me. And so, I just was like that. And so, but she wasn't having it, y'all. She was just like, I don't want to really talk. I don't have nothing to say. And so I just, next class I saw her and I just kind of but it really, by and by, I noticed it started to bother me a little bit more. But then I had to realize, Katana, you don't know, maybe that's how she was raised. Like maybe that's how she is. Maybe that's who she is. Just like this is who you are. Like maybe that's how she is. And you have to allow her to warm up to that, because some people, they are taught to be very distrustful of other people. Whereas you find it more easy to be social with people. So with that, I just want to leave y'all with that. Like, don't always think about it from a point of view like this is they're purposely doing something. Like, look at it from the other side. Like maybe that's how they were raised. Like maybe things happened to them in their life that caused them to be like more closed off. And maybe just some of that sunshine in your life will help them be more, and I've had people who treated me like they didn't like me or whatever the case is. But also I learned too that the freedom that I have from being who I am, a lot of people don't have that. And I thought, like, maybe they want that, but they don't know how to really ask for that because they don't know how to deal with those emotions for themselves. So instead of like asking me, hey, why are you always happy? Or hey, how do you deal with things like that? So, hey, whatever the case is, they rather like treat me like something is wrong with me. Does that make sense? Like, because people want to project onto other people their hurt and their pain and their stuff. But you have to know and get to a place where you don't take it personally, because you don't know what they're dealing with and you're not in their mind. You haven't had their experiences. You don't know their childhood. So you can't automatically make it selfish and about you, like they purposely did something to hurt you. Does that make sense? So with that being said, that's the end of our truth session. Thank y'all so much for being here. I love y'all so much. Y'all show up every time for me, and I appreciate it so much. I'm going to hop into our Truth Room group. And if you missed out, we just closed enrollment on yesterday. So if you missed out and you want to be a part, there is a way to get on the wait list. And it's first come, first serve. That's the people that'll be notified first before it opens again. So if you want to be a part, the link is in the description of this video. It's bit.ly/truth waitlist. And so, like I said, if you want to be a part of this amazing group of women who are rocking their lives and it's only getting better and better as time goes by, then definitely get on that wait list and we would love to have you join us. All right. Love y'all. It is 5:33. I went a little bit over, but I don't think y'all mind. See y'all next week, God willing, with another amazing truth topic. Bye.